In this video, I'm going to go over meshing and orienting mesh data so that you can create a product. Let me dive in. I have several scans. This is my mesh information. I've been working on something called Model 6. Now, to explain what's going on, let me show you what I'm working on. It's important to me that if I go to my isometric view, it kind of looks right. So this is what I've scanned, and I'm going to get rid of this K&N filter and put in a new filter. I'm going to see if I can make a better filter for Triumph. So the way that I go about it is I scan in the information, and in previous videos I just orient it by rotating about certain axes, but I figured that there might be a better way to do it. The actual body of the carburetors right here. So let me get rid of that. Let me show you some new techniques that I've used to actually orient meshes. So what I do is I use Elia's 3D spline, and with 3D splines you can create a vector in space. So basically I'm going from here to here, and that's the opening on the body of my carburetor. But one of the things that's new that I ended up doing is I wanted to go to the midpoint of that, and I wanted to establish another vector representing the horizontal. So I wasn't able to pick up the midpoint of an existing curve. So what I ended up doing is making some modifications to his. So I took his, I made a copy of it because I can't modify his. And then what I did was I added an edge to the filter type. So now I get to pick vertices and I can pick edges. By picking edge, I can also pick the midpoint of an edge is what I really want. I really don't want the edge. In fact, putting edge in the selection inside the query can create an error and cause this to fail. So what I do is I guard down here, he's creating points, and I guard that with evaluating the length of the query. And if the length of the query is 0, then it's a vertex, and I allow that to pass. And if it's an edge, well, it has length, and it's not equal to 0, and I don't stack it in here. With that, now I can create vectors at midpoints and at the overall diameters. So with that, I come over here, I put a mate connector on this. Let's go over the definition of this mate connector. So basically it's on the vertex, it's the midpoint of the vertex, and then I align based on my horizontal. Now what that does is that establishes the mate connector in the Z direction. So what I do is I rotate it 90 degrees or 270 degrees, which actually puts the mate connector coming out of the carburetor. Then I put another mate connector at the origin, and that is in the isometric, and then I just do a transformation. So there's no playing around. I can pretty much just establish what's going on. You can understand that now I've actually translated the carburetor, and I've got the origin right on the carburetor body opening. So now you can kind of understand what I'm trying to do. Okay? Now that I'm back inside of my design, I can come over here and I can turn my meshes on. And because I've positioned them in the right location, they just kind of appear magically in the right location. This is the overall. This is a large scan, so I can kind of see what this thing's going to look like inside of my bike. And then I also did a finer density. Once again, all I have to do is locate them in the same location and they both appear. The nice thing about the way that I did this is that my geometry is truly on the front and centered on the origin, so I get to build the way I normally do. I'm just positioning the mesh in a way that I can actually use it when I'm doing my design. Not real happy with the colors, so let's go over and take a look at the document loader. One of the things that I've added here is now I can highlight the names. You can actually turn the names off, turn them back on. And let's go ahead, let's load this up. And with that, I'm going to go into the display states, and I'm going to change the colors, make this look a little bit better. I'll change the body to a gray, change it to red, and when I go back, it updates immediately so that I can actually see what the modifications are that I'm working on. With that, let's go ahead, take a look at some of this other stuff that I have inside of here. Let's open up the mesh, and this is the fine mesh, and this is the large mesh, and then this is the carb body. Actually, it's the carb mount, and then this is the filter keep. So I can very quickly modify the colors and update it inside of Onshape. So now everything's nice and neat. One other thing that I added in this release is configurations. Right now this throttle body is 35 millimeters long. Let's go over here, let's make it 50 millimeters long. And if I don't really like that, or if I really want to get better performance, let's go ahead and let's make it 75 millimeters long. Now, all the while, we need to keep in mind that the throttle body, if I take a look at its profile, there's a 7-degree opening. So as the air is transitioning, I get good compressibility and I'm not creating turbulence when I'm actually compressing the air down inside of this carburetor body. This is typical of a velocity stack and should help ram the air inside of the motor, and I should be able to get better performance. So what's new with Onshape, the web, and what we're able to do now is to allow users to go to a website. With configurations, you can display that on your website. They can click on buttons and it can rebuild it, and they can actually purchase different size velocity stacks for differing carburetors. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do, build a model that can flex and actually be configured for the various carburetors that are out there in the world. The way the internet's currently doing it is with rule-based engines. That's how they're trying to tackle variations in part design. What's new with Onshape is the idea that now we have a parametric configurator, and I think that's going to be a lot better. So I'm going to go off and have this thing built. Once I get it built, I'll post another video and tell you whether or not this thing worked, and do I get better performance faster, can I get up the hill faster, is basically how I'm going to test it. But what I'm more interested in is putting this up on my website and have some toggles associated with it, so you can go in and you can click some buttons and it'll rebuild a velocity stack for virtually any carburetor that's out there. It's interesting. I'm really excited about the new capabilities for building configurators on the internet, and I think that this is going to be a pretty good example of that. Thanks for watching.